Hey everybody, welcome to Example of Play. This video is going to be the start of another Let's Learn series where we will tackle a fairly complex game and walk through how to get you up and going and playing the game over the course of a handful of videos. This one is going to be for Poland 39. This is the latest from Wargame Design Studios, and it's part of their Panzer Campaigns series of games. So it is looking at a much larger scale scenarios than some of the other ones that we've looked at before, dealing with units that are on like the battalion level, hundreds of men per unit that you're moving around. But a lot of the principles remain the same. But given the nature of these scenarios, this one is a little more complex. There's some more options just because it's so much broader in scope of what kind of operations you're doing. In this first video, we're going to play around with the getting started scenario. This is the tutorial that comes with the game, and it comes with a little guide document just for it, and we're just going to kind of step through it and do it in video format and just talk through how to play the game to help you get started. So let's go ahead with it. All right, so whenever you fire up the game, you'll get this screen here where you can pick which scenario you want to play. We will just be playing the one at the very top of the list, Getting Started, Action at Tczew, which features the opening German surprise attack to seize some bridges over the river at the city there, and makes a nice starting point both for the game in general and to learn the game, as it's only involves a few units for each side. If we look through this list here, we can see that the game comes with quite a few scenarios that cover all different major battles of this war. Even though the war in Poland only lasted about a month, it was still a large-scale war with tens of thousands of casualties on both sides, as the Polish forces did not go down easily. And this game is probably maybe the most detailed coverage of that part of World War II that I've ever seen in any kind of game at all. If we look, there are also some campaign scenarios here that let you play out the full war. There's several different variants of it. Some of them are 158 turns, which is the abbreviated one, and then there is the monster 348 turn version of the campaign, which covers everything, including the Soviet invasion and also some different hypothetical variants of that campaign. So a lot of options here if you're wanting to play the war in Poland. But for today, we're just going to hit Getting Started there at the top. We'll hit OK. We're going to be playing as the Germans, so we're going to set Allied AI to automatic with Fog of War. And then we could look at the rules here real quick. These are optional rules. We don't need to change any of these. Each scenario, the scenario designer handpicks which of these optional rules to use or not. And then so if you hit default, it's the default for that particular scenario. But you are free to change it up as well if you want, but we always leave it all alone for now. And then you can slide this back and forth to do a little bit of a difficulty slider. If you're having any trouble with the game, you can do that, but we'll just leave it on balanced, and then we'll hit OK to load on into the scenario and see that the command report comes up. It's dawn. It's our turn. There's 8 turns in this scenario, so it's going to be pretty short. And we do have some air units available, so that's nice. So whenever you start the game, especially if this is your first Wargame Design Studio, I kind of say the same thing about all these. You're going to see all these buttons across the top. It can feel very overwhelming, and it kind of is. There's a lot of different stuff to click on and see what it does. But you don't really need to know very many of those buttons to get started. You only need to know a few really to get started, and you can learn the rest as you go. So for this video, we're not going to talk about all of them. We're just going to talk about the ones that come up that you need to know to get through this scenario, and then we'll explore a little further as we go. But for starters, we're just going to talk about a few at a time. Whenever you do start, though, you can use the mouse wheel to zoom in. If we zoom in further, the map changes to this kind of pseudo 3D map where it's a little easier to see the contours of the land and the elevation. This map is, due to just the nature of the terrain here, it's very flat, so it's not much to be seen. But if we were to switch to this view, we can see there's like some ridge lines along here, and here we can also see them. They just look different. It's just kind of personal preference, which one of these you prefer. I find this map, it's a little clearer, it's a little easier to see some of the information, it's just not as pretty, versus this map where it's a little more artistic and looks a little nicer, but some of the information is you got to look a little harder to see a few things. Like, for example, these resupply points, which are very clear, the source of supply, which is very clear on this map, but on this map, you gotta kind of be looking for it to see it blended in there, at least on those terrain tiles. Anyway, a few buttons up here to look at. You can hit these tab buttons to narrow down which options you're seeing just by topic. Over here, there are some speed buttons. Don't be confused. It is a turn-based game. This button ends your turn and hands it over to the allies, and then it comes back to you. These buttons just control how fast the replay of the allies of your opponent's actions play out. So if it's a really big scenario, you might want to speed it up a little bit, or you might want to slow it down to kind of see. There's also all of these things are also in these tabs here. So if you're kind of not like the icons aren't making sense to you, you can also just look through here to see what all the options are, as well as hotkeys. So most of them have a hotkey that you can select as well if you don't want to be clicking the buttons. And then one kind of useful thing here before we get started, if you use some of these yellow ones under unit, you can do some very useful things. For starters, of seeing visible hexes. So what can be seen from a hex. If we select that, we can't see very far, and that's because it is 0500. It's very early in the morning still, it's dark, and so our units can't see very far, one hex really. And then if we select this reachable hexes, that'll let us see how far our units can move, so that can be useful for planning out their moves. And then target hexes, command range, maximum range, all useful things as well that might come up as we go. But just for starters, let's try selecting one of our units. So if you click a hex, you'll see that you see what units are in the hex down here, but you don't actually select them. You're just selecting that hex. If you double click, now they highlight and we have them selected. And we can also, if we highlight like this one, we can see where it can move to. Now we might notice the movement here is limited, and that's because these units are loaded on a train. So we have there's like a little railroad symbol there, and we also see movement has an R after it, showing that this battalion of troops is actually loaded on a train, and that's why they can only move along the train tracks. Makes sense, but easier to visualize here if you didn't realize that. If we select a different unit, these guys are also on a train. If we select these guys, they're on foot, and we can see that they are not moving very fast at all. These guys are moving a little faster. They can move 2 hexes. We can also see down here how much movement points they have. And then you can click that on and off by hitting the H key as well. You'll notice these hexes are all shaded all the time, and that's because for this particular scenario, those are impassable. Basically, just the scenario design is that we can't go over there. So not every scenario is going to have something like that, but this one does. And then kind of last thing before we get some stuff moving, if we click on a hex, we can see these units down here. We have information about them, a little art. If we hold down right click, we get some alternate information. So we get some more stats on the unit, what their kind of attack defense values are on the right hand side. And then on the left hand side, this is their place in the order of battle. So at the top is this unit that you're looking at going and then it goes, as you go down the list, you're basically going up the chain all the way up to like Wehrmacht, so all the way up to the highest level listed, starting with but the lower level at the top. And then also we can see here, this is information about the hex, so we can see what each hex side is. Like here, you got a lot of stuff, you might not be able to see that hex clearly. You can come here and see, okay, there's railroad going up, railroad going down, primary road running the other way, there's a stream on this side. That kind of information is all there in case you can't quite see it on the map visually. And then as we look out on the map, we can see Tczew is here in the middle. The bridges are here. If we select those bridges, we can see wired right here. So we know that they're wired to explode, which is part of this scenario that we need to try to secure them before they get blown up. And then we can see that these 2 hexes have victory markers on them. So those are objective hexes that we need to control. Each one's worth 50 points, but currently Poland controls them. And then if we're curious about our victory conditions, the scenario briefing on the scenario selection screen, you can see the briefing of what you're trying to do historically in words. But if we look here, victory conditions, we can see the points that we need, because it's a game, so we got points we need to score to win. And then we can see that right now, no one's taken any losses, so no points have been awarded for losses in either direction. But our overall value that we need to get a minor victory is 75 points, and a major victory is 100 points. So if we want to get a major victory, we need to capture both those to get 100 points, and then basically inflict more casualties on them than they inflict on us, as in terms of points, to keep that margin above 100. So that lets you know kind of where you're at. Right now we have no points, so we're losing for sure. So let's go ahead. We've talked long enough. Let's try to change that by getting some units moving. First thing, let's see if we can get a little reconnaissance on our objective. So if we select this hex here, we can, if you remember at the very beginning, it mentioned we have some air missions available. So if we can either hit Control A or click this mission, or click this button to see what air missions we have available. We do have some Ju-87 dive bombers available, but right now we're going to call in these Do-17s to do a little recon mission. So we'll just click on that to see what we get, and it's successful. It's not always guaranteed to be successful when you do a air recon mission, but here we now see that there are some Polish units in these hexes. We don't have a ton of information other than that they are infantry, and then we see the little XXX men here, so that means there's at least 100 or more men there. So between 100 and 1,000 could be quite a few guys, could make a pretty big difference, but gives us an idea of what we're up against. If we looked at our units, we can see this is a unit 448 men. Up here we have a unit of 700. This one's just 56. So be sure you kind of take note of how large these units are before you send them into battle. On the actual counter, you can see in the top left is the number of men in that unit, or alternatively, like this one is how many, 24 is how many vehicles are in that unit, or how many guns are in this unit, but it gives you a little idea in the top left there. Now there's one in each part of the town, and they are in some trenches, and yeah, we've seen them, so we know they're there, but now we got to go after them and go get them. So to move our first unit, we'll double click on this unit to select it. And this is actually an armored train. So it has two vehicles. So it's two parts of an armored train, kind of one of those oddball units you see pop up in games of this era. But here actually makes sense for it to be used, as it could rapidly move up the rail line straight to the objective we're looking for. So it kind of makes historical sense that this is what they used here in this particular battle to support the attack. But for our purposes here, to move, we just right click with the unit select, right click a hex that they can move to. If you hit H, recall that these guys are on a train, so actually they can only go, it's an armored train, so it's kind of stuck on the tracks. So we're limited on where we can go, but we will move up. Now in this game, there's two different ways to move. You can right click one hex at a time to have them move up. And we'll just follow along with the guide, which has us moving it all the way up. And as we see here, we're moving now. These hexes are disappearing because we've used up more of our movement allowance for the turn. And we're going to move all the way up to the bridge, and where we're now in contact with the enemy. And we'll see if we got any more information on them. You may or may not get more details. You might already have some, but once your units are in more direct contact, you will gain more information about the enemy units there. The other way of moving is we'll come back down here to our infantry battalion that's loaded on a train, which we can see because it's got the little RR for railroad. It's got the R after the movement, so we know that they are on this train. We'll select them. Again, we can see they can only move on the train hexes. And instead of right-clicking one hex at a time, we're going to left-click and drag. And you can drag to a spot you want them to go to. And then they will move all the way there. So that's a little faster than clicking one hex at a time. But it's to be used with a little caution, because in this case, they can only move along the railroad hexes. But in other situations, you might drag move like that, and they might, move not the way you prefer, move into danger that could be avoided otherwise. So just a little caution when moving like that. or just move kind of one chunk at a time instead of making a big giant move. But here, there's only one way to go, so it's fine. We'll also come back here and find this armored car unit. It has 24 armored cars in it. Now when we select them with the reachable hexes turned on, we can see it's different because they can move along the roads and not necessarily along the railroad tracks. Some of these might have a road with them, but here they can move along these primary roads a lot faster. But can you notice they can't move off the roads because this is like swampy terrain, which if we look here, we can very clearly see that's like a swampy looking terrain tile. So they're still limited to moving all down the road. But we'll just use the click and drag method again, and we're gonna actually move them up onto the other bridge and see if we got any more information. No additional information yet, but that's okay. Now, before we do anything else, we are going to call in some airstrikes. So we will select one of these, the top hex, and go back to the airstrike dialog. We have 3 Stuka dive bomber squadrons available for us to call in. Looks like they are all pretty much the same. We'll call in one there, and we see we inflicted 9 casualties, and they are now disrupted. So that's very good. It's going to make our attacks a lot easier. So we'll switch over to this one. We can also hit Control A to bring that up. We'll call in bombers on them. Not as effective. Looks like we lost a plane, only inflicted a couple casualties. So we'll hit that one again. This time they got intercepted by enemy air units. So it looks like they didn't even do anything there because they got intercepted on the way in. So a nice mixture of results there for our 3 air attack missions. But this one got disrupted, so they are going to be our primary target. Try hit them first to drive them out of that town. One thing to note, these guys are in urban terrain, and if, just like in real life, if you create a bunch of rubble out of urban terrain, it actually becomes more easy to defend because a destroyed city has a million hiding spots versus an intact one. So it's a thing to consider when dropping bombs on cities anywhere. Now we'll bring up the rest of our forces from over here in Marienburg. So we'll select these guys, Pioneer Battalion. We'll move them up, and we can see one thing to note, they have this little icon here showing that they're loaded in trucks, and the little T here, which means that they're in travel mode. So when it's in travel mode, it's going to move. It's got way more movement, but it's not going to be very less combat effective, more vulnerable to attack, but can move a lot further. So for our situation here, we're trying to get them up to the front. We want them in travel mode, but we'll switch them out of it once we get there. We can see they can move up all the roads in their wheeled vehicles. Just to show, if we click this unit here, we can see that they actually can't move as far, but we'll move these guys first. So we'll click and drag for this situation, get them up there, and then if we come back and select these guys, now we can see they can move much further because they're not having to move through that hex where those other guys were. So you can be aware that there's traffic jams can be created when units get stacked up, especially we've got this limited maneuvering space here where these units can only move up these roads right now in their wheeled vehicles, and also highlights why you would want to defend these roads in any kind of general strategy sense, that the roads are really important because your wheeled vehicles are pretty much limited to moving up the road to move any distance at all. So we'll bring up these guys, and then if we select this one, which is like a machine gun unit, we can keep moving them up towards the front, but our artillery here is a little bit slower, so they're not going to make it quite as far. And you see they got setup required there, so they still need to set up to go into action, but we're just going to bring them closer to the front for now. And then we come back to these guys and see now they can move really far as well because the units in front of them have moved up. So we'll move them up with the machine gun unit there and get them to the front. Now we'll come over here. We have some units on the other side as well. And if you remember, they aren't moving very fast, and because they are not in travel mode. So if we want to change that, we can come up here, we can hit Control T or click this button to set them to travel mode, and we can see that lets them move a lot faster. Even though they're not in vehicles, basically they're getting in like a column to march down the road. but as you might imagine, that's more vulnerable to being attacked, but lets them get closer to the front quickly. So we'll do that. See if we can move them up there. And then these guys as well. Though remember, this unit's only 56 guys, so it's not a very big unit there. We'll put them in travel mode as well and get them moving up the road. And then this last unit is some towed AT guns, which could be helpful. We'll put them in travel mode, and you can see when they're not in travel mode, they can't move at all. They're fixed in position. But when we switch them to travel mode, now, well, I messed up there. It used up some of their movement to switch, and I switched them back. So they're not going anywhere, but a lesson learned there. Don't willy-nilly switch between travel mode and not, because basically they spent their time hooking up the vehicle, getting it ready to move, and now they're unhooked them, then hooked them up again. So we'll get them to the front later. All right, so we've done about all we can do for turn 1 here. We've moved up our units, and then they don't have enough action basically left to make an attack. So we'll hit this to end the turn on our first turn. And now the Polish forces taking their turn, and we can see it comes back to us. We get our command report. Some single-use units have been removed. I think that might have been... No, armor train is still there. So they did attack, and we saw they took a couple casualties, but they pushed back our armored train a hex off the bridge. And you can see the bridge is now damaged. So maybe they blew the bridge, potentially. But this bridge is still wired and has not been destroyed. So we will carry on. All right, so I reviewed the guide, and actually I got a lucky result here in that this bridge did not get destroyed just yet, but it's still wired, so it could get destroyed after this turn. But historically, both bridges were destroyed, meaning that the larger portion of the German attack force was not able to directly assault the city, and it fell to just the more limited forces here on the western side. But we are going to kind of play along with what normally will happen. So if you're playing this, usually both bridges will get destroyed, and it's possible this one will still get destroyed on the next turn. So we're just going to play along that way for demonstration purposes. Now, imagining that both bridges had been destroyed and we couldn't march troops across, what we would need to do is set up to support as best we could from this side of the river, because these are this is a major river, so there's no easy crossing of it. You'll notice there's some smaller streams. These are streams which can be crossed by some of your units, but this river is pretty much impassable. There is a ferry up here, so you might be able to get some units across there, but this is a really short scenario. There's only 8 turns, so we're just going to kind of play along with the historical variant. Now we can check to see how can we support these guys across the river. Which units do we have that are ranged? Basically, our infantry, of course, as you might imagine, can only attack the hex next to them. The way we can see that is if we come up here and click either hit X or this one for maximum range. We'll select a few different units to see, like a regular infantry unit can only attack 1 hex over, so something adjacent to it. Our armored train has got some cannons on it, so it can actually fire pretty far. And then our artillery back here, you can see that it's got a huge range. So we can set it up back here to provide support. And one interesting one to note is that this machine gun company here can actually fire 2 hexes, so they can fire across the river and give some support. So we're going to take a few actions here to help our guys out. Now this is, there's a whole pioneer battalion here. We could send them across, but for our purposes here, we're going to pretend that they can't go across just yet. I'm going to move my machine gun company up. I'm going to switch this artillery unit to get them out of transport mode. So you can see it says setup required. Basically they can't fire right now because they're not set up. We will hit change travel mode to set them to not be travel mode, and then they will automatically switch to being set up over the next turn or two. And then our HQ, we're also going to have them switch out of travel mode. And then our HQ, we can see its command range by clicking C, hitting C, or clicking this button. And you can see the command range of this HQ. So while they're set up, once they get all up and going, they are basically units within this range are going to be recover from being disrupted better. They're going to stay better supplied. They're just going to be more effective when they're within range of an HQ that is operational and in contact. So we'll take those actions to get set up to support the attack by the forces on the other side of the river. Now we'll go ahead and try to make a couple attacks. If we select a unit, so these guys, they're out of movement points. I'm not sure if they'll be able to attack or not. We'll try. In these games, you can come up here and either click this button to switch between move and fire mode, or what's easier is just to hold down the control key and you'll see your cursor changes to a little crosshair, which means that while you have it held down, if you right click, your units are going to make an attack if they can. So we'll try attacking these guys. No, they don't have enough movement points left. I knew that already. So now that we know a little bit about our attack range, let's go ahead and make a ranged attack. We'll select our armored car here, or armored train. Like in most of these games, you can come up here and click this button to switch toggle between move and fire mode, or what's easier is just to leave it in move mode all the time and hold down control. And you'll see your cursor changes to a little crosshair, meaning that now you can right click to make an attack if an attack is legal for what you're trying to do. If not, you'll see a little text right here. It's kind of hard to see, but down here along the bottom, it'll tell you like why you can't attack if nothing happens. But we'll have our armored train fire across the river. And there we go. Got some no effect. Sounded good, but we didn't do anything, but that's okay. And then, yep, they can attack again. And then your attacks are tied to your movement points. So basically, the more a unit moves, the less movement points it has left. I'm not sure if anywhere in here it tells you how many movement points they need to make an attack, but it gives you an idea. A fresh unit's going to be able to attack multiple times, potentially, where a unit that's moved might only be able to attack once or not at all. Like our machine gun company, they moved up and unloaded, but they can't attack because they're out of movement points. Which might have also been because they moved into the same hex as this entire Pioneer battalion that's kind of in their way. So we'll move these guys back. And then just for funsies, these guys, since they're still sitting on the bridge, we'll go ahead and have them attack as well. Now they're attacking close up, not indirectly at range, so they're making more of a direct attack. All right, so we inflicted one casualty. So not a whole lot, no effect that time. So our armored cars move fast, but they're not having much effect, but they were still in transport mode. So maybe we'll take them out of transport mode or try to on the next turn. So not very effective attacking while in transport mode. And then our artillery can't attack yet. They're still getting set up. Now we'll jump across the river and we'll move up some of these units. And having read a little further into the guide, answer one of my own questions. You can select a unit and use this save movement cost button right there, and we will have them save their movement. We'll see now movement is bracketed right here, and basically that saves enough movement points that you can move up and still be able to attack or still be able to unlimber like an artillery unit. So we'll put them in that movement mode, and we'll see if we can move them up towards these guys and see. All right, they got shot at a little bit. We will switch them out of movement mode, and then we'll have them, well, we won't attack yet. We'll move up this smaller unit as well. We'll do that with them. When you click it, you see it gets bracketed. And that way, if you have that saved, you don't have to always use this, but in like this scenario where you're moving up and you want to be able to arrive and have that unit defend itself, you can leave it. You can have that set so that they always have enough movement points left to take an action when they get wherever they're going. And we'll see if they can get up here. But now they can't move anymore. And then finally, we'll select these guys, our AT unit back here, which we kind of left behind on accident by having them limber and unlimber too many times. And we'll see if we can move them up here. Yep, they can get up there. And then we will move them into with these infantry. And they're going to get shot at a little bit too. And then we'll unlimber them. And then even while unlimbering, they got attacked. So taking any kind of action in the face of the enemy can be harmful, or make your units vulnerable. And then let's see. This turn, we didn't. You may get an air attack back. We didn't get any for this turn, so I can't make an air attack. So we will select this hex and have them attack. We're going to try to hammer these guys since they're already disrupted. They're the most vulnerable enemy unit. All right, so we attack, inflict a little bit more casualties, 11 that time. But you can see we still don't know exactly how many enemy we're dealing with, but a fair amount, over 100 at least. Okay, so that's about all we can do for turn 2 here. If you're following along with the getting started guide that comes with the game, you'll know I'm a little off track of where it's at, of where my units are exactly and everything. And in your game, you may not have had, the bridges might have got blown, they might have not got blown, you might have got airstrikes this turn that I didn't get. Every time you play a scenario, it's going to play out a little bit differently, but we're just going to keep rolling with it. But we'll go ahead and end this turn. We go to turn 3. The Polish units didn't do anything. We do get some air units back to us. So for turn 3, let's continue our assault. Now, if things went historically for you, you wouldn't be able to cross any units over the river, but you might want to still get these guys off the train. So we didn't talk about that yet. So you can see they're still on this train, got the little icon there. You can also, if you're in this view mode, you'll notice they have little white bars below units, and that tells you that they are still in travel mode. So it's kind of easy visual reminder of that there. When you're looking here, you can see like the little T next to the movement number in the bottom left. So a couple different ways to see that. But let's click these guys, and where this button or Control T takes them out of travel mode, this button or Control W will change their rail mode. So we'll click that, and that gets them off the train, and you'll see their movement. Now it says they're in travel mode, but they have 0 movement left. So getting units off of a train takes a couple turns. So just be aware of that. They're a little vulnerable. You can move really far on a train, of course, but then when you get there, it's going to take you a couple turns to get unloaded and get off the train and ready to go. And then our machine gun company, we'll switch them out of travel mode. We got to select them, and then we'll switch them out of travel mode. So now they'll be a little more effective for shooting across the river. And we'll do the same with these guys. Switch them out of... Oh, they can't switch out of travel mode because they're on a bridge. So we'll go ahead and pull them back, since we're just going to play along with the scenario. Okay, so let's make some attacks across the river here to kind of soften them up and get ready for our infantry to go in on that side. Obviously, if this bridge is still intact for you, you could just march a bunch of units across, and it'd probably be pretty straightforward. But we're going to play along with the scenario kind of as the expected result goes. So first, we'll select our armored train here, hold down Control, right click to continue hammering the northern unit. Even though no effect that time, but that's okay. They're still disrupted, so that'll help our guys going into attack. And then we'll have our machine gun company fire across the river. So inflicted just a couple casualties, but still it's something. We'll check on our artillery back here. They are still setup required, so they're still getting ready to go. So it might be another turn before we can bring them into action. But we did get an air attack available this turn, so we'll go ahead and have those Stukas come in. So we see we lost one plane, but we did inflict 7 casualties, so we hit them again. Now, maybe I should have used it on these guys to try to disrupt them with that attack, but I kind of believe in hammering, kicking the one that's down until we can knock them out. All right, and then looking over here at our SS unit on this side. So what I was supposed to do if I was following along with the guide, I kind of skipped ahead a little bit, is that we can, before we moved into range, something you might want to do in a scenario like this where hypothetically you'd only have really one main unit for making your attack, you could split up some larger units into their individual components, which still gives you the same amount of total manpower, but makes them a little more flexible, as you can cover additional hexes, or in this case, you can move the units up as smaller units so that there's less chance of them all becoming disrupted. For example, if we moved up this battalion, they took some fire, they came through okay, but if they had become disrupted, this entire battalion would be disrupted, which makes it a little tougher in this scenario because they're the only unit we would have available to make the attack, and we only have a few turns available. So we can actually split up this battalion into multiple companies. If we look down here, we can see the little plus 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 after the name of the unit, and that is telling us that it can be split up into multiple smaller units. And then we can do that by simply selecting the unit and then clicking this button, combine or break down, or hitting Control C. And we'll see that they split off into another unit there. We do it again, do it again. So now we have 4 companies from that battalion instead of 1 full unit. And then they can even still be stacked together. They can still move and attack together, but they're going to be individual so that you can spread them out if you needed to, or like in this case, if they took fire, they might not necessarily all get disrupted, maybe 1 or 2 versus the entire battalion becoming disrupted. One thing to mention is right here, morale C. So there's different levels of morale. Like A is best and it goes down. I don't know if it goes past D, but like the lower letter, less morale, less effective basically. It's like a morale A unit probably not going to disrupt very easy versus like a morale C unit, they might. But with all that said, we will select these guys and get ready to attack. We'll select all these guys and then Control right click, have them continue attacking. Took 9 casualties. All right, so we're inflicting some decent amount of casualties on these guys. They're still disrupted. That's all going good. I'm a little ahead of schedule here, I think. So we'll go ahead and end this turn and head on into turn 4 and see if our artillery becomes available so we can demonstrate using them. Okay, so we see, all right, so air units are available. 1 unit is set up, and that's our artillery unit. So we can click on it to see, oh yeah, these guys are set up. Now in this scenario, it's very small. We only have a couple of units really, compared to some of the bigger scenarios where you have tons of units. So it'd be very useful to click that and be able to see where it's talking about. So we'll close that and let's get ready for turn 4. Now to start off turn 4, before we make any direct attacks, let's use our indirect fire again. We have this artillery available now, and we can hit Control B or click this button here to bring up the artillery dialog. And now this is useful because up to now we just had the armored train was really our only kind of indirect fire unit available, but now we also have our artillery battery here. And this screen is really great because you can see all the artillery available to you that hasn't fired yet and could still fire on the turn, which in some scenarios you might have quite a few options. And it also helps you visualize because you click on it and it highlights in yellow the units that you could fire at. Or here we see it like that. And that way you can kind of easily see like which units are in range of which of my artillery, where are my artillery at. Very useful. You could still do it like we've done with the armored train. You could just click it and Control right click to attack, but we'll use this dialog here to do it. So you can just select it, and we'll have them fire on the southern because we want to kind of disrupt them as well. So just right click, and we'll see that they no effect. Still no effect, and then they drop off the list, so they're no longer available to fire. Let's have the armored train fire at them. No effect. So I might have gotten really lucky by disrupting these guys right off the bat up there, because the other unit is being pretty resilient to getting fired at. But then we see the artillery dialog just disappears on its own. So now you know I don't have any artillery left to fire. I do still have an air attack, so let's go ahead and have those come in. So still not disrupted. We did trigger some fatigue damage, so we're wearing them down, but that southern unit is being really stubborn. We'll go ahead and have our machine guns fire across the river. inflict some minimal casualties. Yeah, those guys are being real stubborn down there. So we might be real lucky that these guys are already disrupted off of just that first armored train attack. We kind of guess we caught them surprised, so that was good for us. Now the time has come for us to make our first assault. So we've been doing ranged fire, basically having our units shoot from 1 or 2 hexes away or even further with the artillery. But as you can see, the Polish units are being very stubborn, taking some casualties, but we know that both of these units have triple-digit numbers of men in them, and we've been inflicting just a handful of casualties here and there. And we haven't knocked them down too much because they're still standing strong. So really what we need to do to actually push them out and actually get a victory, force them out of that position and potentially taking way more casualties, is to do an assault. So we have this unit, they are in position and ready to make the assault. If you're playing along exactly with the guide, it'll look a little bit different, but we'll just roll with it for here. And to make an assault, basically instead of holding down control and right clicking, we're just going to right click like we want a unit to move into the same hex with an enemy unit. And that's going to set up an assault. You can have multiple units added to the assault, and you can even attack from different directions. These guys are all going to go in together from this hex. Before I do that, I'm going to have my anti-tank guns here fire as well. So you might not want every unit in a hex to make a ranged attack. You might want to just select one unit and do that. Inflict a couple more casualties before we go in. But they're already disrupted. They're not going to get more disrupted. So at some point, you just have to go in and make the attack. Otherwise, you're just never going to wear them down any time frame available, because we're ahead of schedule here, really, compared to the guide, and we're on turn 4 of 8. So we're halfway through the scenario. We got to push them off that hex. So we'll go ahead and select all of our infantry companies here, and then right click, no holding down control, just right click, and we'll see, okay, we have unknown assault odds, fog of war. So sometimes you might know, if you know more about exactly how many enemy units are there, you might know like you have an advantage, disadvantage, gives you an idea, but we don't know because we don't know exactly how many enemies are in that hex. And then based on that, you can come up here and we can narrow this down by clicking combat. These buttons are all assault related, or these two, sorry, are assault related. So we can either do Control P or click the button to resolve the assault to actually commence with it, or we can click cancel assault to cancel it. But setting it up is still like an action. It's not a free action to like set it up and then back off. So we'll go ahead and commence the assault and see how it goes. All right, so we can see we won. We took, I believe, the attackers on the left, so we took 6 casualties, inflicted 22, but more importantly, we forced them off that hex, off the victory hex, and now we control it. And we can see our guys have accumulated a little bit of fatigue there, but that's okay. And then we still don't, even after fighting those guys and forcing them off, we still don't know exactly how many there are, but they are now out in the open, and we are on the victory hex. So if we say open up our victory dialog here, we see that now we have 52 points, and so we are now at a draw. We're in between we're above minor defeat, but not to minor victory yet, so we're at a draw. So we still need to take this other hex to get the win. All right, so I've kind of exhausted what my units can do for this turn, so well, I'm gonna move these guys up just to provide security for those AT guns, and then take them out of travel mode. So I'll just have these guys kind of guard those AT guns so that the infantry can focus on holding the city. And then let's go on to turn 5. Polish forces make a couple little attacks there. Some shooting back and forth. Okay, we have a unit low on ammo, so across there, which makes sense, they're across the river, and that is kind of depends on if they're in range to an HQ or not. And there's a few factors that kind of decide how a unit gets low on ammo. But not sure if I can tell which one is which. I'll look that up here in a second. Well, actually, that brings up a good chance to try out some of these buttons we haven't used yet. So these highlight buttons, there's quite a few, and these are going to highlight for you status of all kinds of different statuses for your units. So If, say, we want to know which unit is low on ammo or low on fuel, we can click that, and it highlights that, oh, actually, it's not one of those infantry guys. It is the AT gun. Okay, so then it says plainly right there, low on ammo. There you go. Letting us know that they're low on ammo, so they're going to be less effective in combat because they're running low on rounds. If they were in command range, we'd have a good chance of them getting resupplied, but might be difficult right now since our only HQ unit is across a river with the enemy unit in the way. But these buttons let you see all kinds of things like that, so that's a good example of where they come in useful. Now for the rest of the scenario, the guide doesn't, it's kind of open-ended from here, so we'll just apply what we've learned to try to dislodge these guys from this space and take the other objective hex to get the victory. So let's hit Control B, bring up our artillery again. We're not worried about these guys, they're disrupted, they're out here, they're not going to be able to hit us back, so we're just going to worry about this hex and hit them with everything we got. They are tough down there. But, ooh, look at that. We've got all kinds of support now. Tons of air support coming in. All right, looks like we can't call in these other ones, but that's useful. We got a lot of air support coming in, but they are still being real stubborn, not getting disrupted yet. Now, since we still don't know exactly how big this force is and they're still not disrupted, we're not going to try to assault them yet. We'll just have our guys shoot at them. Just keep trying to whittle them down. And they can shoot back at us too, but we should have them outnumbered, hopefully. And then just for fun, I might have my armored cars move up to attack them. Which, oh yeah, so if you take them out, they actually can't move onto that bridge while they're in deployed. They have to be in travel mode to move onto the bridge, so that's important to know. They're not going to be very effective, but they can add a little fire to it. And then we could try to bring across our infantry, but we'll just carry on. Okay, we'll end the turn again. All right, so one other unit low on ammo, and then one recovered fatigue. So we'll just kind of keep doing the same thing here. And we got Recon flight. Sure, we'll send them in. Man, they are not breaking. All right, well, we'll just keep at it. See if we can finish them off here. We can be as stubborn as they can be. All right, we still got a couple turns left, so we will take our time and not risk our infantry unnecessarily. No. So now these guys are in the way, so our machine guns can't fire at them from over there. Good to know. We'll move... No, they can't move. Alright. Alright, we got one more turn. Or let's see, do we have... Man, I really want to finish these guys off. Get the major victory, but they're making it tough for us. Alright, we got one turn left. Let's see if we can get them disrupted, and if no matter what, we're gonna go in. Now it's dusk, we fought all day, we've almost secured the objective. So now it's saying I can't attack because it's now dusk, visibility is lowered. So our units actually, our machine gun unit can't attack. I wonder if our air can go in. Air can still go in. Alright, so it's the last turn. We gotta do it to try to go for the win. We will go for an assault. Hopefully we've beat them up enough that our units can overwhelm them. And let's see what happens. No. Dang, we inflicted a lot of casualties, but they are still lodged in there. That's tough. I wonder... These guys, probably they can't, but... What if we tried to have them go assault as well? No, not enough left. So maybe we should have gone for the assault sooner, or used our advantage of this bridge not getting destroyed to try to roll in there sooner as well. But no, so that's a tough end. Everything went so great up till the end, and this unit is just not budging no matter how much we hit them. So, but I think that said, you saw enough to play through the opening scenario, get to grips with the game. We reached the end, stuck with a draw, unfortunately, came up a little short of the victory. If we played again, it could go totally different. But that should give you everything, all the tools you need to know to get started with Poland 39, part of the Panzer Campaigns series. And then I'm gonna do another video. I'm gonna find another scenario that maybe demonstrates some of the other things that we didn't use in that scenario. And then we can see, yeah, so they still had 379 men left. They were just hanging tough in there. Okay, well, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time on the next part of this series. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss it. Bye.